Vandana, you're there? Yeah.
Hi, Rimaji. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Pleasure.
Just
yes.
trying to get organized.
Take your time.
Hello.
Okay.
Namaste, Rimaji.
Namaste. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Good to see you, even though if it's virtually.
Sure. Same here. Same here. Thank you.
Thank you for
Okay,
being
well, I'll
here.
take hold of the proceedings because we are now live on YouTube. Welcome back for our second spotlight session. As you know, scientific evidence strongly suggests that gender equity is critical to combat climate crisis. And based on this, Vaishali Sinha, who is not only the Chief Sustainability Officer at Renew Power, but also the founding chair of the Renew Foundation. She is also, in addition to that, very, very active, as you know, with the GES Summit. And it's fantastic to see her here. She's a leader when it comes to, and she's heavily engaged with think tanks across India and across the world. In fact, she's speaking to us from Paris, aren't you, Vaishali? You're in Paris at the moment. So you had an extremely early start today. So it's fabulous that you're here. Of course, as the Vice President of the North of UN Global Compact Network, India, and Chairperson of the Gender Committee. Well, she is now going to be in conversation with someone really special. We have Padma Shri Reema Nanavati here with us, who is a director at SEWA. SEWA, of course, being the Self-Employed Women's Association of India. Reema leads the SEWA organization and the economic and rural development activities, which reach out to 17 million women and their families across India. That's just incredible. And since 1989, she's pioneered the revival, restoration, and innovation of rural livelihoods from district to a global level. She's recognized across India and in the neighboring countries as a champion of making livelihoods of the poor women and making sure that they reach markets that they deserve. A lot of these women are artisans, salt pan workers, farmers, and laborers. And she's really made an effort over the last 2 decades to mainstream the amazing diversity of skills and knowledge that these Indian citizens have. So it's fantastic, looking at really giving dignity and respect to an audience that would really not have had it before. And her effort has created a more dynamic local economy, a fairer and equal society for thousands of Seva sisters and these citizens of India. And she was honored with a Padma Shri, which is the 4th highest civilian award in 2013 for her contributions to the field of social service. So Vaishali, like everyone else, I'm really eager to hear the questions you've got for Reemaji. Please take it away.
Thank you, Vandana. Thank you. Thank you for introducing Reemaji so well. But I think no introductions will do justice to the kind of work which she's doing, leading with Seva, leading on the ground. Most invaluable because we don't have many leaders like you. So Reemaji, welcome and thank you for doing what you do for India. We are really greatly indebted to you for your leadership and your work. And thank you for agreeing to participate in this fireside chat. It is the spotlight session at the Gender Equality Summit where we really do bring in inspirational leaders from all walks of life. Just before this, we were in conversation with Zareen Daruwala, who is leading a financial institution. And after this, tomorrow, we are going to be in conversation with a global leader in the investment management industry, who's also advocating for the rights of LGBTQ plus. So very diverse set of leaders who are having an impact. And we like to go behind what we read and see to their journeys so that, a lot of the men and women on this platform can listen, get inspired, and perhaps do even a fraction of what all of you have done. The idea is to have a free-flowing dialogue and to learn from your experiences. And so before I begin this session, where we are going to be looking at women as contributors to climate action, and as you will agree that climate action and women have a lot in common, some good, some not so good. And we want to try and address the not so good part and try and see what are the solutions and recommendations we can come in to make it better. As WHO rightly highlighted, climate change continues to be the greatest threat to the 21st century. I'm sure nobody on this session will disagree with that. As the climate crisis deepens, and let's acknowledge that it is deepening. I think to a great extent we are talking about it, but if you ask me, I'm not sure if enough action is being taken, if we are measuring the action and the results to see the pace at which we are accelerating towards our goal. I think more can be done there. It is also exacerbating to see the existing socio-economic inequities which exist. Today, it is no secret that climate change is not gender agnostic, rather women and girls bear a far higher risk of being affected. And this has been highlighted by data in a report which was presented earlier in the session, in our inaugural session by Pricewaterhouse, that be it physical health, be it livelihood, be it food security, be it domestic violence, be it income, there are lots of parameters in which women are contributors. At the same time, you would expect them to be beneficiaries, but they are at this sort of suffering end of this whole ecosystem. We need to change that. And today there is, I guess, a strategic opportunity to tackle climate change by mainstreaming women's empowerment through climate resilient solutions, rightfully integrating women, especially at the grassroots, is no longer a nice to do, a good to do. It is critical and must to do. And there's nobody who is doing it better than all of you are, Rima ji, on the ground. So as someone who's worked so hard to uplift the women and to engage them at the grassroots for decades, can you share some of the key learnings and drivers that have shaped this journey? And, how have you seen this journey evolve over the last few decades of your engagement in this area? We'd like to go to the behind the scenes of this journey. Over to you, Rimaji.
Thank you so much, Vaishali ji. It gives me immense pleasure to speak here at the UNGC's 5th Gender Equality Summit on behalf of the 2.1 million members of SEWA, all economically very active. At SEWA, we call them the wheels of the pyramid. They keep the economy of our country very vibrant. And as you were saying that, at SEWA, we come together as poor, as women, and as workers, no matter what caste, community, or religion we belong to. But coming together builds the collective strength of the women in their fight against poverty. Our experience has shown that poor women workers do not need charity, but they need an enabling environment, innovative financial tools and instruments that will enable them, that will equip them in their fight against poverty. I think the second lesson that comes out from our almost 5 decades of experience on actually on 12th April 2022, SEWA will be 50 years. So I think, and that is that, if we focus on what are the demands or what are the issues that the women are grappling with, not just women alone, but that's also affecting the communities. And if we start organizing to address the issues, then I think it increases the participation of the women and their communities. And this leads to a co-creation mechanism. It leads to a sense of ownership and belongingness, and therefore makes the program viable and scalable and sustainable. It leads to enterprise building, which then, starts scaling up. But most important is that nothing has to be free. All programs have to be contributory, and I think that brings mutual accountability. So contribution in kind, contribution in terms of token financial inputs, but over a period of time the community has to start contributing by creating their own revenue streams. And therefore, we at Seva believe in a very holistic, integrated approach which addresses several SDGs, which equips and enables the women. So I think to begin with, organizing, which then leads to asset creation in the name of women, be it in the form of small savings or having license to run their enterprises, or having access to tools and equipments, followed by capacity building, both leadership capabilities, managerial capabilities, and support services, which includes healthcare, nutrition, education, and childcare. And when all these things come together, this in itself becomes an empowering process for the women. She's able to speak up. She's no longer seen as somebody's wife or somebody's daughter or somebody's daughter-in-law, but it gives her an identity. And she's able to therefore participate in the decision-making processes. I would also like to say here that as you were referring that, climate crisis is the biggest challenge for the 21st century, and women are the worst sufferers of poverty compounded by climate shocks. And this further compounds it by leading to food and nutrition insecurity, lack of access to education and healthcare. And therefore, I think our almost 5 decades of experience has shown that these women workers, even though the poorest of the poor, contribute immensely to the climate and environmental preservation in their own small but effective way.
Thank you. Thank you, Rima ji. And, it's so beautiful when I listen to you. It seems very simple. It seems very logical. It seems very easy to do. The whole process you've just laid out before us. What Seva is doing, how is it that you are sort of nurturing the self-esteem of women to be, standing on their feet. Shouldn't be that complicated. But the unfortunate reality is that there are not enough people who have been able to do this successfully in grassroots India or in corporate India. There always seems to be a big shadow over the future or the engagement or the rewards or the recognition or the fair engagement of women at the workplace. Women are continuously underrepresented, even in the climate action discourse, which we just talked about. And that is really, if I could use the word, harmful for the future of women, especially in rural India. There is an urgent need in the grassroots to get women engaged at the local level, at the global level. I have conversations with people in Africa. The situation is even worse, if not as bad. So the million-dollar question here is, what is it that we need to do better? To engage more women who are, I guess if I could use the term global south loosely, based here and are facing the harmful impacts of climate change with not enough being done. What is it that we can do with respect to funds, with respect to having more institutions like yours? Because I do feel, Rima ji, I'm also working in a renewable energy space where I feel that what I do in my company is only a part of my journey. But what I do beyond is a larger part of the journey. Because, what we learn is what we need to give back. So how is it that we can do more? What is it that we can expect leaders like you to do and help others to be able to do more.
I'm so glad, Vaishaliban, that you were, asking this question, and I would want to answer this on behalf of these women workers themselves, because however small their contributions would be, uh, but they're significant. Collectively, they become significant contributions, and they are hardly accounted for. And I think you at Renew Power have set an example that how, you could invest in skilling in these young women into, as green technicians, as solar technicians, and therefore creating green jobs or green livelihoods that bring dignity and self-respect. I think that is what the future of work and future of workers is going to be. That, it gives them dignity, it earns them dignity and self-respect, and they can stand on their own feet. The second area is that how do we invest in building women-owned and managed energy enterprises, which then generate, a whole movement of moving or transitioning from fossil based to green and clean energy, and therefore contributing towards climate action. Let me give you some examples. We have organized over 15,000 poor salt pan workers in the little run of Kutch in Gujarat. And even today, in the 21st century, these salt pan workers live the life of a bonded laborer, all because lack of access to finance and lack of access to technology, the green technology, and lack of access to market. And as a result, they have to migrate to the desert and live in the desert for almost 8 to 9 months, and barely earning close to $150, so 20 to 30,000 rupees. And due to lack of asset ownership and working capital, these poor salt pan workers are forced to use diesel pump sets, and that takes away almost 75% of their earnings in getting the diesel oil. And we realized that by providing them access to clean or green energy solutions like solar pumps, but how would they afford this 10 times more investment? But that would immediately strengthen their livelihoods and also contribute to our NDCs. And therefore, in the last 5 years, we have given them access to finance through the public sector and private sector banks. And today, almost 7,000 women salt pan workers now use solar pumps, as a result of which consumption of diesel has come down by almost 50%. So women are able to invest and buy a second pump set, and therefore their entire salt production is based on solar energy, and so it becomes green production. And what do we do with the panels in the off season when they go back to the villages? And so this year, the women are piloting on setting up a 2.7 megawatt solar park, the first ever solar park, which is owned and managed by the women themselves. And the revenue that's generated by selling the energy to the grid will help them in repaying back their EMIs. And it will also help in contributing towards not just India's NDCs, but also meeting with several SDGs. And offsetting the carbon emission by almost 38,000 tons. Similarly, I think women always innovate. And that's where how do we reduce the indoor air pollution by switching over to using clean fuel instead of wood and cow dung cake for cooking. And that's where we have village entrepreneurs which say, connect to Ujjwala scheme and provide LPG connections. They do the servicing of the LPG. And now women are innovating because innovation is a way of coping. So women who can't afford to own their own LPG gas cylinders, the self-help groups, they lend them for 3 hours, 4 hours per day, or whatever their affordability is. So what I'm trying to say is that how Renew is investing in skilling these women so that access to technology also becomes seamless. It also builds energy entrepreneurs and provides them a decent work. And then the second big area is investing in creating green energy fund so that access to finance becomes affordable for the women.
Thank you, Rima ji. I think some very fundamental and useful ideas and points you have shared in this answer. I also want to say that if we look at this session here, you are a warrior on the ground. We are trying to do what we are doing at the corporate level. We have United Nations Global Compact, UN Women. All of us have come together to do this session, which is the Gender Equality Summit, a session which brings leaders to this platform to share their views, insights, which we then collate and try and do more about and try and address it in terms of action. So perhaps one way to provide the input, I guess the other way is to measure the output. And once we measure the output, we can say things are being done. And towards that extent, we do try to do our bit to measure the output in various ways. And hopefully we can do better. I think we can all do better in different ways. And that would be one. I feel we need to measure more to take stock of where we are. And I think all of us are aware of that, and we will continue to do that. But it's really heartening to see how we are living in a world. I'm sure it's very different from 30 years ago where this connect wasn't there. And I think courtesy technology and courtesy this virtual sort of opportunities we've got. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we've learned to operate in a hybrid fashion where people from around the world can share ideas and collaborate and build partnerships, because it's very difficult to bring about this change individually. So there is always a silver lining, and we see that. And I hope you agree, it's important for us to acknowledge that we are in a better space now. I know we have to do a lot more because, the gap is so much from where we want to be to where we are that, we all really need to come together, but we are moving in the right direction. And it is, and I would request you, we are there, Global Compact is there to partner with you and organizations such as yours to be able to have the impact on the ground, which is so important for climate change. I think investors are asking for it around the world as to what are we doing in as far as diversity and inclusion is concerned. When we look at supply chain issues, what are we doing with respect to providing employment and engaging women at the workplace? And the kind of deep insights you brought to the conversation today is just the beginning, and there's so much more we can do together. And I look forward as the chair of this summit and also in many other capacities to work with each one of you together. Before we wrap this session up, I wanted to just go behind the Rima ji we see in public to just, your personal, challenges you might have faced. I'm sure it's not been an easy journey. And so if you were to reflect and think about the most maybe top couple of challenges you face and how you overcame those, it'll be very insightful for people who really want to take on this journey. And sometimes we just see very successful people, but we don't see the challenges they've gone through and overcome. That'll be very helpful for some of the audiences here and for each one of us who's listening to you.
I'm so glad you want to know behind the scene, the challenges and how you overcome. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that how do you make your children understand the relevance and the importance of the work that you are doing? And I think I had always made it a point that I will take both my sons, till it was possible, wherever I went in the field, so that they understand whether my mother is going away every week on a fun ride, or what is she trying to do? And I was sure either they would hate the work I do, or they would really respect and love the work that I'm doing. And I'm so glad the later happened, that, both my sons now really respect the work that I'm doing. The second and the most important is that where do you draw the strength and the inspiration to continue, in the fight against poverty, which is so frustrating, which is full of challenges. And I think it's the women themselves that give you that needed strength and courage. When you see them, that in spite of struggling so much, they are always full of hope. And why are we getting frustrated? And I think it's that solidarity that helps you overcome the challenges. So I think my message is that just be with those women, be amongst those women. And I think life becomes a much, much more happier and a much, much more optimistic life that we all would be able to. And last and most important is the support from your husband and your mother-in-law, I think, and the mother. And I think that makes a huge difference. But thank you so much, Vaishali ji. And I think these are some of the experiences which not many get. And I feel fortunate that I have the opportunity to work with those rural women in the informal sector. Thank you.
Indeed, indeed, Reema ji, you are fortunate. And if I could say, they are more fortunate to have a leader like you amongst them. And we are very grateful for all the work you do. And we look forward to working together in the future and tapping on your deep expertise, passion for, and compassion to bring about the change you're working for. Thank you for being with us in the Spotlight session. Thank you, Reema ji. Over to you, Vandana.
Thank you so much, Reema ji, and thank you, Vaishali, for being such a brilliant question mistress, as opposed to master, as they say. No, it was brilliant. It was such an interactive, like, fireside spotlight conversation. And Reema ji, some of the main points that you said, the wheels of the pyramid really are the heart of the country, and we need collective strength. We need to bond with them and create a belonging, because when we do that, we create sustainability. We need to enable them. And one thing I think you brought out that was really important was there needs to be a contribution. It can't all be free. It can't be charity. It's got to be something where they can save, an asset create, and then capacity build. And then there's no stopping. There's no stopping women. The idea of giving women dignity and respect through their jobs, let them earn the dignity and respect through their jobs, and let's encourage them. Let's encourage women-owned and managed enterprises. And Vaishali, I know the work that you're doing at Renew is also fantastic, and Reema ji mentioned that as well. So it's really lovely to see that we're tackling the problem from so many different sides, and that's what's needed to really heal the challenge that we've got. Green energy and access to finance are going to be key. When we allow women to innovate, we can really see what they do. So thank you so much, Reema ji, for some brilliant answers to some excellent questions that Vaishali posed. We are now at the end of day one. So thank you, everyone who's joined us today. I think I want to end with 3 words that I think sum up the Spotlight sessions beautifully, but also our morning. The 3 C's: connections, so connecting and cross-fertilizing all these different industries and all these people who are coming together, collaborating and co.
I think we lost Vandana for a second.
Villages across the world. Thank you, everyone. That's the end of our first day of the 5th GES Summit. Thank you to all our sponsors. Apologies, everyone. Anyway, just to finish off, thank you. We are starting sharp at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Come for day 2. You will not be disappointed. Good evening, everyone, and see you tomorrow.